Good day. This webcast focuses on the Open Data Center Alliance's VM interoperability usage model. The objective of this usage model is to describe how cloud services should be able to interoperate between different cloud environments. That means that we don't want to be locked into one environment once we've located our services in that environment, and we need to be able to transport them between different cloud environments. In order to do that, we need to consider certain standards. We need to look at different methods and approaches and usage models. So we focus on interconnectability, in which two environments are able to extend capacity of resources between those environments. And then we look at portability, the approach or process of transporting a workload from one platform across onto another one for processing capability and capacity. That does not extend necessarily to the storage layer. It's the compute and processing layer which we refer to in this usage model. There are multiple scenarios which will require interoperability between different cloud environments. And we've picked the three that are most relevant and top of mind at the moment in terms of the Open Data Center Alliance members' contributions. The first one we look at is application migration, where we want to be able to transfer applications from one discrete set of virtual machines, possibly one cloud, onto another one with minimal effort. And typically here we're focusing on under 20 kilometer distances. In other words, we're still able to access the original data in situ. The next usage scenario that we look into is the extension of private cloud. In other words, adding additional resources to an environment that already exists. And then the third usage scenario would be the enablement of business continuity, whereby we may want to be able to continue the availability of a service or system during an outage on the original source site. We believe that this usage model will be really applicable to a number of interested parties. We start off by looking at procurement managers. Typically they're going to be looking at asking and understanding how interoperable cloud services are that are being offered to them. The cloud subscriber is going to be interested to know what the potential is of any service which they're participating in to extend or migrate elsewhere. The cloud provider will be interested in this usage model because they're going to be wanting to develop their services to map to market expectations and to market demands, and by having a strong capability in that regard, create a much more attractive offering. We look at the regulators, and the regulators would be considering what the implications are of service migration between cloud environments and how to help provide frameworks and requirements for compliance and for auditing across those. And then of course the auditors would be interested in this usage model to help them to set up a set of requirements and standard analysis and questions for consideration in any kind of audit of such a service or environment that has moved from location A to location B, and all of the parameters necessary behind that. Right, so as we begin to look into the usage model itself, we just focus again on the applicability. So what we look at is how do we apply this usage model in context. And first opportunity is to migrate processing between local cloud platforms that may exist within a single enterprise or environment, or of course within a contracted environment. Then migration of processing between alternate process or service providers. So those locations may include moving from a corporate environment into a provided cloud by another party. And then the third scenario is, of course, bursting of workload, and that would be for seasonal peaks or various other business-driven reasons to look for additional resource and compute capacity from another cloud environment when, because of a seasonal peak or for whatever other reason, the current source environment's resources are exhausted. As we begin to go into the process of migrating a workload from one environment into another, we have to consider a number of dimensions. Those dimensions range from scalability, elasticity, the portability and capability of the environment at source and at target. And we need to begin to categorize the options and the facilities that are actually available to us in each of the categories that I've mentioned. So typically Open Data Center Alliance subscribes to the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum qualities of service. And what we identify here is the per service and per service characteristic, a categorization of bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, which allows one to be able to evaluate and to position the quality of both one's own requirements and then of the services that are on offer. And one may compare between source and target environments similarly. That allows you to be able to obtain a closer match, as well as if, for example, you had a gold or a platinum level of service, to immediately cut out the majority of services on offer and to look specifically for services that meet the characteristics of gold and platinum level of service across all of the various important dimensions that are mentioned in the usage model. VM interoperability depends on a capability and the application of a set of standards and standard terms, definitions, frameworks, and specifications between different cloud providers. And one also has to consider that there are different standards at each of the different layers of your stack. So, for example, at the hardware layer, there's a set of standards which one would consider. For example, are you running on Intel or RISC or AMD type of processing? Then we look into the hypervisor layer, and in the hypervisor layer, the DMTF's OVF specification becomes important and relevant to consider. And then as we go into some of the other layers, we start to consider in application layers the SIMI and the TOSCA standards. It's really important to understand those, because otherwise interoperability is really hard to measure between cloud environments. One has to consider what your own requirements are, look at what specifications and standards your environments will adhere to in your current source environment, and then look for those out in the target environments. What we do see is that these standards are not yet completely well integrated throughout the industry, but are maturing very, very rapidly. But that does make interoperability a pretty complex task which has to be thought through. Proof of concepts have to be performed, and testing for your particular environment has to be performed. The usage model touches on these important points and is supported by POC material that has been produced on the back of it, allowing for one to be able to benchmark your results against a baseline that has already been determined. Anybody who intends to create portability within their workload would have to begin by considering VM interoperability and the necessary characteristics behind that. We think that this usage model provides an excellent framework and foundation to map those considerations and to begin to characterize your own requirements and to position those. Thank you for listening, and look forward to your feedback and future interactions.